And it's like we can very order. Roll call, please.
Chair Carr. Vice Chair Wright,
Here.
Director Condit,
Present.
Director Morrow,
Here.
Director Ritchie, Director Wilson,
Present.
Director Withrow. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item is not on the agenda, and not includes that action is authorized by Government Fund 2. And not take any action. Anybody from the public would like to speak this time? Members of the Is that better? Okay. Amazing when you push a button. Mr. Victor Martinez. Victor has been a dedicated transit operator for 16 years, serving on routes 100, 25, and 31. He initially joined the profession seeking a new challenge and has since established himself as a highly skilled and professional operator, recognized for his exceptional safety awareness and accident-free record. Known for his outstanding customer service, Victor consistently strives to create a positive experience for passengers, greeting each one with a warm smile. Victor enjoys visiting galleries, traveling, and playing golf in his free time. Victor also advocates for safety initiatives to encourage operators to maintain high performance standards. So, Mr. Martinez, please come forward. Thank you very much for all your service and everything that you do with these keep up to positive safety record. So, here we go. Okay, here's a gift card as a thank you from us, and we're going to bless you before we play around.
All right. Picture thing is much bigger. It's battery operated.
Okay. Next up is Michael Gonzalez. Michael has been a transit driver for 2 years and 7 months, operating our minivan service, Medivan service. A retired meat cutter, Michael was inspired to become a driver by his passion for helping people. Michael has grown into a safe and dependable operator. His standout moment was assisting a wheelchair passenger to the 3rd floor of a medical appointment when her assistance was unavailable. Michael is known for his humor and compassion. Please join us in congratulating Michael on a well-deserved recognition. Thank you very much for all your service and everything you do for this organization. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, consent calendar. Are there
Here,
any items on the consent count?
We have a hand raised from Director Wilson?
No, it wasn't raised. I was just clapping, the clapping emoji.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, are there any items from the consent calendar that would like to be pulled? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, hearing none, I will move that we accept the consent calendar as is. Yeah. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
Aye.
thank you very much. Okay, discussion item, 8. Where is it? 8A. Seven B. Okay. Pardon me? Yes. Onboard survey report, Miss Angela Swanson.
There you go. Good afternoon. Mayor Park, members of the board. I'm pleased to present to you today the annual survey that we do of our fixed route riders. We'll walk you through some of the highlights from this survey. Next slide, please. So just to remind you, the purpose of the survey, we're required at least triennially to do it. We take the best practice of doing it annually as a requirement of Title VI, which is to ensure there are no disparities in service between individuals of color, communities of color, and those that are not. This data is used for fair service and facilities equity analyses that are required when we make major changes. We gather demographics on our passengers. Over time, it gives us insights that we may not have otherwise on how our service is going. We get opinions on how we're doing, and this informs our planning decisions and has already had a large influence on us. Next slide. Right. So the survey is structured because we do make sure that this is a statistically valid survey, which have a 95% confidence level with a 5% margin of error, which is the statistical norm for this kind of work. We break down the surveys by the routes that we provide service on and do make sure the minimum number of surveys is gathered proportionately based on the ridership per route so that we get a good distribution. We needed a minimum of 385. We actually got over 750. And the survey was open for a longer period than usual. We usually do it for just about a month or a week, a month, but we ran it for the full month because in past years we've had requests to open it up and let the public do a QR code or come in online and do it. And despite all the interest in it, we didn't see that it made much of a difference. But you always have to give it a try. Next one. So let's talk about the rider characteristics we learned about. So how old are you? The biggest thing we saw, so to the left is we're always measuring 2024, 23, then 22. So what we really saw this year, if you look to the far right, is that 65-year-olds plus grew in ridership numbers, which is really interesting. I don't have a good reason to explain why. They're just finding, discovering, and writing the service. It's a good thing. We were a little surprised to see that there was a drop in ages 0 to 18 since those folks can ride for free, and we see strong ridership impacts from our high school students. What might have happened again is because we work very diligently to make sure we're getting only once per rider and that we're spreading it across a variety of days and time of days that we ride. And students tend to ride to school and back from school, that we may have undercounted them a little bit in it. I wouldn't say that we have 0 to 18-year-olds fleeing, but an interesting fact is that the majority of our ridership by a slim margin come from the 35 to 54-year-olds. Next slide. Household income. We have continued, and this is where seeing over time, we have seen just how continually that our ridership is overwhelmingly living at or below the federal poverty line, either for an individual or even up to a family of 4. And as we know, working in the public sector, when the federal family of 4 standard is $27,000 in California, even in Modesto, that's just not covering it even for an individual. So we have folks that are really transit dependent upon us. Next. Your employment status is the next thing we're looking at. James, can we clear, there we go, thanks. Is, how much are you working? So interestingly enough, very spread across the board. The big thing we're seeing, and again, the 2024 is to the left, that full-time employees account for just under 20% of it, which is, just tells us that we are not like maybe an urban area where you're seeing a lot of people who are commuting to work. You might see on BART or San Francisco Muni, we're really seeing a balance of needs across the board. And again, there we're seeing an increase in those who identified themselves as students, whether MJC or under 18. And again, the largest group though is the unemployed. Next. Yes, sir.
Go back to that slide, please. I just wanted to ask, the full-time on the 3
Uh-huh.
years, since the highest rate was in
For
2022,
two, yeah.
could that be due to the pandemic and COVID? And as we've come out of that, that's why people have gotten back in their cars?
That could be that I thought you were going a different direction at first, which I was going to say, no, I would think the opposite if it was. But the fact that they're getting in their cars and that they're driving more and getting back to old habits, that could be reflected in that. And that they can't work at home, because we are seeing that movement that where people are working from home less than they were previously. So it could be that they've chosen their cars.
All right.
And then where are you going? So we again see a disparity, a difference. I have a second slide a little further down just to show over time the difference. But in general, we see people do a lot of things. And again, the work statistic shows nothing was more than about 32%. That it's a real mix across the board. We are not the suburban commute to work transit system. We serve everybody. Next slide. Ethnicity, your ethnic identification or racial identification. Unsurprisingly, in Stanislaus County, our ridership really closely reflects the breakdown between white non-Hispanics and the Hispanic or Latino population in the community. And so these are, and it's gratifying to be able to cross-check to see that our ridership closely mirrors the population breakdown in the county. So that's gratifying. We also, just a couple other facts. We found that 27% of just about a quarter of our riders speak Spanish in their home, but only 9% characterize themselves as having to no English speaking skills. So that's useful information for us to use as we're marketing and doing outreach, to be mindful of it, but to also validate the tools we're using. Next slide. Transit habits of the riders. Do you transfer buses? This was the single most important data point out of the whole survey we found, which is, this is comparing 24 in yellow to green being 2022. We didn't ask the question in a usable way in 23. And there is a stark jump from like 52%, I believe it was, to 79.85% said, yes, they transfer buses. What that means is you get on your bus at StanRTA, and to get to your destination, you have to get off and get on another bus, whether it's going to Turlock, whether it's one of our BART riders having to get onto BART, or whether most typically it's a rider having to get onto another bus in our system. 2022 is before we implemented all the regional changes, where we increased the service, improved connectivity between what was START and MAX, and also where we added the new routes and really changed the system. So what this really does is stimulate for us what we have been thinking as staff, which is that people are no longer as much coming in as it was in the old days with the city, where you would come into downtown Modesto at the transit center and you would get off. We're seeing more people transferring and moving around. That means we need at those bus stops and at transit hubs like Ceres to time buses so that you get off and easily get onto your next bus to get to your destination, so you're not left waiting. We have more work to do, but we'll be starting work on our short range transit plan and this data. And we do have what those routes where people are connecting to, information to help us even do more to improve our transit network, to make sure it works effectively for people all over the place. Next slide. Fare payment habits. So 60% identify themselves as paying with cash or a day pass. So where they distinguish that is, do you get on the bus, pay with your $1 or $2 and get a day pass, or are you someone who already carries a day pass with you? 41% of our riders use the senior disabled income. or discount, which again aligns with our data on unemployment and low income. 21% of our riders ride free through the variety of programs we have for the students, college students, city and county employees and veterans, and 14% of our riders use a 31-day pass, which is our next most frequent payment form. And that is one that's also used very heavily by our county agencies and any of our partners in the community to their clientele. They give them the monthly passes. Next. How often do you ride? 3 to 7 days a month. Look how that's been growing. And while growing from about 61% to 70% is not enormous over 3 years, it still really shows you that most people are riding who will use the bus are using it very frequently. If you look at that less than once a month where we started out, and again, that was a very small number, but look at how that's dropped off. The several days a month are kind of our regular infrequent riders. So again, so you start getting this picture of someone who needs the service to do their business. Next. And then here's the comparison on where are you going to and some of the things that have changed. Work has gone up a little bit. School is the one where we saw the dramatic over time that I wanted to be able to show that. Healthcare remains consistent and very important across the board. Um, and and then the rest is it's just kind of interesting to get to see the changes in what we've seen. I don't know what was going on in 23, but it was a heck of a good year for shopping, it looks like. Next slide. Where do you get your information? So we see across the board, we continue to have where the primary ways they're connecting with us are through Facebook and StanRTA.org, our website, using a variety of means. LinkedIn is brand new and it's already capturing, and people could respond to as many devices or methods as they have available to them. LinkedIn, though, is already grabbing a good share, which is really an interesting piece to see. So this tells us to stay out on multiple platforms in all ways to try to help people with consuming it. Another point that comes up is the smartphone debate is, do you have a smartphone or not? And what we found was among those who responded to our survey, 82.5% said yes, which is helpful information to us to know and to encourage us to keep using our social media platforms and move to less paper and hard copies of things that they are able to get their information electronically. Next. Customer satisfaction. This is always the big test. So here we go. On the left, we measured multiple areas to see how we were doing. And if the important thing to look at that you'll want to look at is blue is great, red is good, green is fair, purple is poor, and yellow is, I don't relate to the question you're asking me about. Overall, what we saw was, except for bus stop cleanliness, everything we hit at least the 80% mark for say an A grade and a B grade. And that's doing good, and that's very consistent with what we've accomplished in other years. We see our weakest areas are with the bus stop cleanliness, which was a little bit below 80%, where that's a constant issue for us to keep after. Also with our on-time reliability, which is, while it's getting better, the board is acquainted with the fact that that can sometimes be a challenge. So we look at those things. The other thing to pay notice to is where you can go up from the bottom where it says 50% and look at the axis going up and see that on most points, we were very close to the 50% threshold for a great rating. And overall, they gave us 90% as doing great or good job. Means these give us benchmarks to try to work on. The other, so we just keep at it. The other thing I'll mention though is the operator courtesy, where that was next to the overall service, where we rated the highest for great, and that was about 55%. Gave our drivers high marks. Next slide. Requests that came out of the survey. So we always dedicate a couple of questions saying, what can we be doing better? How would you like to see a change? And while reliability on the last slide was pointed out as the problem, the two things people really asked for is if we could we run the service earlier or later? So some of our routes have to close around 7 or 8 in the evening. So people are looking for it to run a little later into the evening. Also to have more service on the weekends when we go to hourly on many of the routes, or to start earlier so they can make better connections. Yes, sir.
I would have a question on the earlier or later.
Yes.
Would the time of year indicate Summertime, it's lighter compared to winter time, it gets darker, so I would think people would want later, more so in the summertime, but they're out more than they would in the wintertime with pouring down rain.
It can be that earlier tends to be just about having to make connections to go where they're going, especially if they're coming from further out, like to be able to get to MJC for an 8 a.m. class, right? You come from Turlock, there may be only one run you can catch that'll get you downtown in time to switch buses to get, again, that goes to that 2-seat ride. And we think that's part of why this is more stronger than reliability. And you're right, some of it'll change, like running later will be more seasonally dependent in some ways with, and in better weather, people want to go out. But we do cut service earlier on the weekends too, because in general, people aren't out as late on Sunday evenings, but so we saw it. So it was interesting to us though, that those came up. We asked people about safety because, as we've talked about a little bit in here and in other forums with our advisory committee, we have seen an uptick, although still small, with safety incidents on the buses and at bus stops. And so we wanted to see in general, how was that affecting the public? And in general, only 21% of those surveyed indicated any concern for their safety. Of those that did, their primary concern was safety at the bus stop, which speaks to lighting, speaks to shelters and the like. So that's good feedback for us as we do our capital planning. Next.
Angela, really quick, for the purpose of the recording, if I can just remind everybody to use their microphone, please.
Perfect. I have mine on. Is
Yep.
it working? Ah, okay.
It wasn't
You're
picking it
a
up.
little too far away.
Yeah. it's not
There
picking
we
it up.
go.
Recording.
Well, Lisa was on.
Thank you.
So having gone all over this, what's the picture?
Can you ask that question again? Okay.
What's the picture I'm trying to paint for you of who's our typical rider? Next. So it's they're transit reliant. They're primarily Latino or white, in keeping with our population. Slightly more likely to be men than women. The ridership with 2-seat rides is increasing. We want to look about how to make that experience work better. Generally, they're happy with our service, but they'd like to see more safety at bus stops. So that, next slide. If there are any questions about it, thank you for letting me share our insights into our fixed route riders.
I have a question on the survey that was in September.
Yes,
And how often do you do the survey?
once a year.
And do you always do it in September or do you?
No,
switch
we've-
different months.
We've moved it around. So last year, we wound up running late with all the things we were doing, and it was done in the first week of December. And we want September or October are a good year to do it, a good time of year to do it. The first one we did in 2022 had to be done as a new agency for our Title VI plan. So we had no choice but to get it done in April. So we're going to routinize it now to be done every September.
Time of month or the time of year, you don't think would make a difference on how the survey will come out?
Summer is not a good time to do it because we cater so much to students and they're out of school and with people's travel habits. So we could so September or May would be good months to do it when you still have a lot of daylight. And that's why we started this right after Labor Day. So people were still moving around, but were in school and in their normal habits. So we could look at a springtime, but those would be the months I would advocate for when we have lots of sunshine.
Going along with that, would it be possible to alternate every other year? One year do September, the next year do May?
We could do that. And again, because we're only required to do this on a triennial basis, we're going above the standard. And I think in general, the data we're finding holds up. If I'd seen over with those 3 different dates we've done, any sharp zigzags consistently across the board,
Right.
I'd be concerned, right? That we're really having problems getting good data, but I'm not seeing anything that would worry me about that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members?
Yeah, just a couple comments. So Angela, thanks. Great report. One thing we talked about, the public safety thing we're talking about, I know we've got something we're working on here, potentially with our sheriff's office, which I hope that works out. It sounds like it should. Anyway, hopefully that will help.
Yes.
Anyway, and it's a great opportunity for the sheriff, great opportunity for us to just have some really trained individuals out there working on stuff. So that's good. This is just a observation. You know, when we look at the ridership and we talk about its the amount of individuals, low income individuals, very low income and unemployed individuals. I wonder if there's an opportunity here. You know, we've got this captured audience on the bus of
Mhm.
individuals who are making very little money from our disadvantaged communities and unemployed. And you know, those public service messages, you know, that could be out there. I wonder if we could get, you know, on the bus videos that could be playing as individuals are riding the bus, you know, discussing, you know, education, you know, opportunities, training opportunities, all these different things. I mean, they're sitting on the bus for who knows how long.
Right.
And it would be great if we had these video screens, and I don't know what that would cost or how to do that, but it would just be this running message in English and in Spanish, you know, that would talk about, you know, are you looking for a job? Are you, you know, let's go look at Volt. Let's go look at training, you know, these different opportunities. Let's look at education, you know, MJC, whatever. If that's just sitting there staring at you all day long, you know, just a thought.
Just to keep them connected, would you like to speak to that, Mr. Barth? Go ahead.
It's already in the works. So we have a project budgeted right now for infotainment screens on the entire fleet, not just the fixed route, but the paratransit as well. And the idea would be to advertise lots of different community events or services, in addition to information about the bus system as well. So so we're moving there. We're just it definitely is a big project, but it's already in the pipeline.
Perfect. That's great. And we don't just want advertising for companies and stuff, really advertising to try to promote, to help these individuals increase their quality of life. And that's great that we're working on that.
Well, also you put the city and county always has openings, job openings, and
Yeah.
it would be a great place to
Post these
advertise
things,
for
yeah.
the city and county.
Yeah, no, I just think it's a great opportunity. You know, they're
No,
not going anywhere.
Absolutely. And we have to, and it's been of a limited impact, but the car cards that we put inside the fixed route buses, we through all the different collaboratives and collectives that we're part of, we let them know that any nonprofit, any, you know, healthcare provider, the county, the
Yeah.
cities can put up, if they're promoting something, whether it's a wellness fair, jobs training, anything they've got going on, that they're welcome to do it, and we'll post it for 30 days and try to help them get their information out. But this would be much more effective.
And it'd be great if, I don't know, you can't do this, but if there was some way you could override somebody's phone, you know, so yeah, because that's what most of the time, that's what they're doing, right? They're on the phone the whole time. But if somehow these could come up on their phone, okay, work on that, Adam. We'll see what we can. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from
That's right.
policy? Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Again, Angela, the great report. The things that concern me the most in my time writing is we definitely have to look at the transfer points and some of the very tight transfers that we've got, because it does impact getting around. And especially if you're transferring from a half hour to an hour bus, you miss that hour bus and you're stuck for an hour until the next one comes along. And we do have some very tight transfers on our system. So I'd suggest in the next round of looking at schedules, we need to tweak that so that runs a little bit better. Just because it is a hassle, you know, the 22 runs every 20 minutes. So if you miss that, you have a 20-minute rate. But my bus home, the 29T, runs every hour. If I miss it, I got an hour-long wait. So we just need to look at that issue as well.
I appreciate hearing from you too, validating exactly what staff feels they're seeing in that transfer situation, that we need to be looking at that in addition to that pulse that works at the transit center, that we need to have it work more.
How many transfer stations do we have?
No, I'm good.
Just one?
Officially, we only have the Modesto Transit Center, and then unofficially, they're at Vintage Fair Mall and in Ceres now where they meet, and in Patterson and at Turlock. So I guess there's a lot of them, but for where we have oriented the system to really try to time everything to work with the number one location is at the Modesto Transit Center, where it's done out of it, and secondarily at the others. What Member Morrow is indicating is that we need to be able to try to address more actively how we interact. In addition, we know there are a lot of stops. McHenry is a place where there are a lot of changes that happen. We have them in Riverbank. You know, there's a lot of communities where we have them happen. So, you know, it's a sign of learning and growing. It's actually, you know, we don't like that it's a shortfall or that it's not at its best now, but it's an exciting opportunity for the next stage in evolving the system.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
We have a hand raised from Director Wilson.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes, just to clarify, the transfer question, is that specific if you transfer from a center or transfer from any bus route to bus route?
The transfer question applied to any bus. So the way the question was specifically asked is, do you need to take more than one bus to get to your destination today? And they would,
Thank you. That may also highlight the need for more direct routes. I would be curious about that as well.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. This was just an agendized item, so we do not need a vote. Move on to 8B, update on series multimodal hub project. Again, Ms. Angela.
perfectly lined up for it. I think this is hopefully the fun part of the day, where it's always nice to get to see a project that's in the works. We all love projects. So in line with what we were just talking about with transfer points and spaces, currently we know we have 5 routes in series that all line up along Service Road across the street from the Super Walmart, taking up about 200 feet of space along the curb, 200, 300 feet of space. Not the ideal place. We have been actively working to identify a property. In the way we work with the FTA for funding on acquiring a site, we have to not just go find a site, but as you're doing that, you have to concurrently be developing your space program so that as you find spaces, you're dropping this proposed program down on it. You make sure that the site suits the program of what's going into there. So we selected and you approved a contract several months ago for on-call engineering and architecture for the team of Siegfried Engineering with their office based here in Modesto, and Dreyfus and Blackford Architects of Sacramento to work with us on the space programming exercise. This is the first exercise in moving toward actually designing the full multimodal hub. Multimodal reflects on the fact that we are designing this space to be able to accommodate not only bus traffic, fixed route buses, but to be able to partner in with other amenities that may be coming in if there are walking trails nearby. We'll have spaces in the program here for bike lockers, for instance. So people who commute and do that. We have park where you can park, where you could have other van pools and the like coming in so that we can have a range of public amenities coming through. So I'll just orientate you to the site a little bit. So as we look from left to right, this is site agnostic, but what it does point up so that this is just kind of our ideal drawing of what we would find, which is a long rectangular site. We'll see what we end up with. You need a driveway, as we see, to the left side, and then as we see at the bottom of the drawing, because in general, with buses coming on and off, unless our entry point is signalized, we do not want 40-foot buses 8 times an hour to be turning left or making left-hand turns across busy streets. And we know the area we're looking at in series, and that's a busy area. So we need to be very aware of having the ability to get out in 2 different areas so that we can be efficient in the delivery of service, making right-hand turns. So that's one of the main features. And then what you're seeing on this are with the lines drawing is showing so that you have enough circular motion. So preferably we're coming in from the bottom. We either loop up to the very, I apologize, but it's easier for me to get up. I need a laser pointer so that we can come up, circulate a bus around here, and then come down here. This is our primary island for the transit buses to come through. We provide for 6 buses. We anticipate we could need as many as 10. We would hope to have extra site developed, or that this could be amended to do it. And then as you see how the buses come in, right, we need to pull everything in so that the bus comes in this way, the driver's on this side, and the door is open here onto the island. So that's the orientation. So the buses come in the wide way on this side, or they come in the narrow way here and catch these 3 islands. Have a canopy over it, similar to what we have at the transit center downtown and at most transit centers. It will, with those infotainment screens, will be delivered so you can be able to see what's going on. Islands for folks to wait at. This landscaping and open spaces as much as anything, with stormwater retention, basin, and minor landscaping. This island is being designed with staff parking and then either van pools, paratransit vans where someone may be transferring onto or off, Metavan, if we've got other kinds of partner groups that are somehow using it, but so that we're dealing with the small fleet vehicles that don't need to be in the way of the 40-foot transit buses. This is ideal for like a 20 to 25-foot long bus. Public can come in here and then park here. We really don't design transit centers to have people park all day. But again, we're looking at trying to create something flexible enough that it will hold up over 20 years for evolving needs and purposes. And also, as we know, microtransit has come up as a first mile, last mile opportunity. You might see that you have Uber and Lyft vehicles parking here or other kinds of personal car options that are going on. This is designed to be the transit center, about 1,250 square feet to hold up to about 20 people. It'll also be a cooling shelter under its state, but we do provide heating and cooling services on our buses, but it also on our site does provide that opportunity. There'll also be a small break room and bathrooms for the operators that are coming in and out of here. So it's a very nice little project, but it hits our needs for what we can do. There's also space under the canopy here that if we had a vendor that wanted to come in to do Lime bikes or segways or scooters or some sort of a concession, they could be housed in that area as well. So there you have it. It's our first cut at the design, and it's an essential part to being able to move forward. This is just showing how sidewalk would circulate coming around, or either waste or bike walkers.
Probably garbage.
It's probably the garbage though. So anyway, so this was our first cut. This will get, as we find a site, this will be adapted to really suit the site that we eventually take control over. But this gives us what FTA needs to see and on what it is we're proposing to do. And we're very excited to be able to share this with you to see the progress we're making moving forward. Is there any questions?
Actually, I do have one comment, and I'll
Would you like to
get Valerie upset at me as well too.
Mr. Moore, hello, hello. We're bringing microphone.
All right,
Should be on.
should be on. Testing. Okay, we're there. Okay. So the way you describe this is you want your buses coming in and pulling in like this. Okay. The way this will have to be flipped. It's a minor point, but the way it's drawn now, this would work fine in England, but it won't work here. Because the way the bus would come in, the driver will be here, but your exit doors are over here out in the street. So you're just going to need to flip the mirror, have the architect do a mirror image.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, talk is big.
Yeah, I would have hated to have this be drawn up like it is and we get ready to cut the ribbon and it wouldn't work out.
Well, now I'm all pink.
The architect with all of the letters after his name.
Who's built a lot of these things. The other thing to note that we've done, trying to be cost sensitive, even in the preliminary design, is that we need a lot of substantial concrete that the buses are on, and it'll destroy typical asphalt. But we need the heaviest concentrations of the concrete where the buses are making their turns. That's where the worst damage is done. So we're working to design it and already working to look at ways for where we can use different kinds of materials with what the grades are to hold up to the wear and tear, but also not wasting a lot of money we don't need. Like on this here where they're coming up and down, this could probably be asphalt just as they're driving straight up and down. So we're already thinking about the things we can do to make this appropriate. And we will be doing this as all design is required to, so we can do some solar on this and all the energy efficiencies. So anyway, thank you for the chance to share it with you. We'll look forward to giving you more news as it comes.
Do we have any questions or comments from the policy board? Ms. Wilson, do you have any questions or comments? Nope, thank you very much. Okay, again, this is an agendized item, so we do not need to take a vote. Moving on to 8C, award bus stop turnout construction contract. Lucen, there we go. You're up.
Lady and gentlemen of the board, thank you for this opportunity to present to you a project that we've been working on. And with your approval, we will be able to improve on-time performance and also provide better service to one of the communities there in Ceres, California. So we would like to install a bus stop turnout, and there's all kinds of benefits to a bus stop turnout. One of them is it does not encroach on the travel lanes, thus allowing the rest of traffic to flow freely around us while we make our brief stop. And the improvement is needed because on-time performance is increased by keeping the route on the main thoroughfare, which in this case is Hatch Road. We all know how busy that one is. We would also eliminate an unnecessary detour. And if you take your attention and direct it at that little map that our CEO has come up with, then you'll notice that we dip down into Glasgow, and that's a historical dip. And the purpose of that was just simply to realign on Moffett Road where the actual bus stop is. But what you don't see on that map is several stop signs and no other transit stops along Glasgow. So we're kind of edging forward very tediously, whereas we would otherwise be on Hatch Road, being with the flow of traffic, and then pulling over to that new red dot up there. Residents of the neighborhood historically really didn't notice too much because Ceres, the CAT system, ran this with downsized cutaway buses. But once we started running these great, beautiful 40-foot, 35-foot buses through there, all of a sudden they started saying, how come you guys just started running a transit route in our neighborhood? It's a little bit more obvious because we have the bus, but we've always run that way. So making them also happy as a side result is getting the buses out of their neighborhood because they don't really need to be there. And then StanRTA continues to make the overall transit experience better. People in that community will now be able to more quickly get to where they were, and we have more time at the end of the line for those transfers that we've been talking about. Next slide. All right, so the intent to award. We had several companies step forward, but the company named Croker Incorporated out of Fresno, California, submitted the lowest and qualified proposal. So with board approval, the agreement to begin and complete the project will be assigned. The award would be at a cost not to exceed, with the contingency, not to exceed $340,277. Fine. Moving forward, the route would be able to stay on Hatch Road instead of dipping down into the Glasgow neighborhood. And the passengers would be able to access the neighborhoods on both sides. And the bus turnout keeps the vehicle out of the travel lane, which is very important to us because that reduces the risk of being rear-ended by inattentive motorists. Okay. We want to thank you for the support. We hope to have a yes vote on this, and I'm here to answer any questions you guys might have about this project.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Wilson, you have a question or a comment?
What is the anticipated timeline for completion? What would it be?
I am glad you asked. I have been working with the city and TID to ensure that this is a possibility for us to complete. And TID, the Turlock Irrigation District, has a stipulation because there is some canal lining that needs to be addressed. They said we can only do this project while the canals are empty. And so therefore, this would be, if this is approved, I will today contact the contractor and let them know that we're going to move forward with it. And they have to be done by the end of February, which is when the water goes back in the canals.
Any other questions, Ms. Wilson? No? Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, hearing none.
Just real quick, sorry. Boy, that's such a difference in price there between the two. Was there, I'm sure you guys discussed that with them, how they were coming in so much lower. What were they, what was the explanation? Just,
That's a great question. So we did have a bid that was disqualified due to, it was called an incomplete bid, and it was at 409. So there is one that would otherwise have been in there. We're not at this point concerned that the project can be done properly with that dollar amount. And we did discuss with council, but we believe part of it has to do with the size of the project. It's kind of what we consider a middle-sized project. It's not a tiny, 100, not a, a $40,000 project, but it's also not one of these $10 million projects. So we believe it kind of gets kind of a gray area in the contracting. Not a lot of people would typically bid on a project that's middle-sized, so we think that they've given different estimates of what it could cost them. And then the canal lining factor was one that a lot of contractors have to take a guess at. There's not a lot of historical data that they can say, oh yeah, we just did one of these last week and then one the year before. They don't come up very often.
you guys are comfortable that they can do this for this price and it'll be a quality product then.
Right. We have surety bond requirements, and we also have payment bond requirements so that we're covering ourselves as well, just in case there is a concern.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will open it up for public comment. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to speak on this item at this time? Hearing none, I will bring it back. At this time, I will make a motion to approve the award of the bus stop turnout contract or construction contract.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. All opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Okay. Moving on, informational items. I'll let the board members read those on their, when they have time. So we will move on to CEO report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a handful of things I wanted to talk to the board about today. One, just want to introduce this idea. We're looking at a route change that we'll bring back to the board most likely in December to review. It's a change to Route 33, and it's been requested actually by MJC, Dr. Wilson and her team. The Pirate Express, the bus that runs between the campuses, between the MJC East and West campuses, that doesn't operate today. And we are supplementing that with a new route. We're calling it Route 34 today. That's just a shuttle bus between the campuses. Starting the first of the year, making a change, a permanent change, Route 33, to link the two campuses together. So the map that you see on the screen on the left is the route that exists today. And the proposed route that will link the two campuses, along with the route that exists today, is on the right. So this is the proposed route. We'll be starting a public process now over the next month or so to get more information on this route to make sure we get it right. And we'll be coming back to the board with the proposed new route for approval. So anyway, just a quick snapshot of what we're looking at in the future. Moving on, just a few events that are good that will be going on in the next month or so. Just wanted to highlight these. November 2nd, the special needs in my city wellness conference, where we'll have a booth. November 5th, election day, free rides on election day on all of our modes to get folks in to vote. November 7th, we'll be at the Central Valley Business Expo at the Modesto Center Plaza. November 16th, Family Fall Festival at Oregon Park. And then November 28th on Thanksgiving, as we do every year, providing a couple of trips on certain routes to a special Thanksgiving dinner that's hosted by the Costa family at Modesto Center Plaza. So we've been doing that for years and years, and we'll continue that this year. Moving on to December, our next board meeting is not until December 5th-ish, I think. Anyway, just want to make sure that everyone's aware that we'll have free rides in December for everybody on all modes. We've done this last year and maybe the year before that, so we'll continue that. This graphic is from last year. The graphics will still need to be done for this year. And then we're planning on being in the Celebration of Lights parade in early December. So a few things that are coming up. I know I'm not supposed to talk about Christmas before Halloween, but I did it anyway. So anyway, that's all I had. I'm happy to take any questions anyone has. Thanks.
Any questions from the board members?
Yes. Okay, Adam, can you go back to the graphic on Route 33?
Yes.
Okay, the proposed route, is that going to be bidirectional throughout the entire route?
Just about. The only way it won't be bidirectional is that that triangle that goes Coldwell Tully Night. That'd be
Okay.
the only part that's not bidirectional, and a little bit by the TC downtown.
Okay. Yeah, because otherwise, if it were single directional, if you're on the wrong side, you take a scenic route from one campus to the other, and the other one gets the direct route.
Yeah.
So if it's bidirectional, then we don't have that problem. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Directors' reports. Do we have anybody from the policy board that would like to make comments at this time?
Yeah, no report. I just want to say, Adam, we're happy you're back. You were in our prayers and we're glad you're looking good. So that's good to see you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, I will give a quick report that I recently went to Anaheim for the Transform Conference. It was a very good conference, very well attended. A couple of things that I took away from it was I did a couple of tours of the Orange County Transit District, their dispatch center, and then one of their bus depots along with their maintenance. Their dispatch system is very nice, very well set up. They can get messages to their bus drivers immediately. If a bus driver is running behind, either the bus driver can notify the dispatch center, or the dispatch center will actually see it come up on a spreadsheet or on a screen saying this bus is 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes behind schedule so far. And then they can take action to see what they need to do to get back online or get back up to speed. The other part that really fascinated me was the tour of the main station where their hydrogen buses are housed and maintained and refilled. First thing is that's where they also do the maintenance on their electric and hydrogen buses. Those mechanics that work on those buses have to be specially certified to work on those buses. There are quite a few safety protocols that they need to follow. I never realized that you have to ground a hydrogen bus to work on it, but there are many electrical components to generate the hydrogen on the bus, so that's why. Then also, it did not make any sense to me, but it's something that they have to deal with right now, is to get the hydrogen for their buses, they have to have it trucked in from Sacramento. The state does not give them any mileage credit for bringing it in that far. The funny part about it is there's a hydrogen generation company in Palm Springs, but they cannot get their hydrogen from Palm Springs. They have to get it from Sacramento. There's a place in Sacramento that they have to get their hydrogen from Palm Springs. Didn't make any sense to me. Sure. The other part that they got into that I've already discussed with Adam to make sure we get ahead of it is they initially wrote the contract on weight. I forget what it's kilograms, whatever. But when they transfer from the truck to the holding tank and then from the holding tank to the buses, they said between those two, they lose 40% of their volume. So they're paying for hydrogen that they don't get to use. So their next contract is they will write it so that they only pay for what they use. And it just goes back to lack of training for the personnel that hook up the nozzles. That's where they're finding the big problem is O-rings or gaskets or whatnot. They're just not sealing correctly. So some really good information that came out. Going back to the electric buses, found out that their you can charge a bus two different ways, either from a plug-in or from an overhead pantograph. The difference is when you plug in a bus, it can take upwards of 2 hours to recharge that bus. Using the pantograph, it can cut that time down to about 30 minutes. So there are pluses and minuses. If you had 7 or 8 buses coming in and using the pantograph at the same time, there would be additional surcharges that would be applied to the organization. So that would not be economically feasible. However, 1 bus, 2 buses, yeah, it would be much better so that the bus isn't sitting around for 2 hours waiting to get fully charged again. So it was a very good conference, good information. And I was very honored to be able to attend along with other representatives from the organization. So if anybody has any questions on those, let me know. Hearing none, right now we will adjourn into closed session.
Just put more energy, more watts through you can with DC. With DC uses a lot of current. Voltage, a lot of
Are we still waiting for closed session?
Okay, we are back from closed session. And there is no reportable action from closed session. I will accept a motion for adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Okay, I'll go get the rest of the people